This is Forward Progress, powered by the Hammer Betting Network. I am your host, Rob Pizzola, joined as always by my co-host, Clive Bixby. It's nice to see your face again after missing last week, although I was sipping some pina coladas or something. I don't know what I was doing on Sunday night last week.
Yeah, I'm sure you weren't missing it too much. At least not my face. You might have been missing the show.
Yeah, I mean, there is like a certain element of routine that I do like overall, but yeah, I'll trade doing the show for a night drinking on the town in Mexico. So that was great. We are live on the Forward Progress YouTube channel, and we are live on Twitter at Forward NFL. If you're not subscribed to the Forward Progress YouTube channel, this is the NFL division of the Hammer. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that thumbs up if you do enjoy the content. This is the show where we recap the week that was. We'll look ahead to Monday Night Football, and then we'll play a guessing game of where lines will move for next week's games. If you can't stick around for the full show, no problem at all. If you're watching Yellowstone tonight, whatever season premiere, no issues. The episode will be available in full when you wake up tomorrow morning, and it'll also be available in podcast form on Spotify and Apple Music. All right. How'd the day go for you?
Light day for me today. Two plays. One went my direction. One went slightly in my direction in terms of getting the best number. I had Tampa Bay slightly juiced under 110 at 2.5. I didn't, even though the market didn't move that much, I didn't hate it. And then I got a good early number on the Chiefs Jags over 49.5, which went up over 51 or 51.5, if I remember correctly, from what I saw. But that game just didn't get there, even though there were 27 points at the half. And then a couple of plays where, based off of injury news, things going on with the Cardinals and the Rams, that I got on and off, that I didn't have any position by the end of the day on that. And the same thing with the Vikings Bills.
Not bad overall. I actually almost played that Chiefs over. I didn't. Luckily, I didn't. Yeah, that moved pretty early on in the week. I think Monday of last week, I believe, took some early money and it kind of got out of range for me. So it is what it is. I was just borderline on the edge there, but because I also had the Jags plus 10, people complain about closing line value or whatever. They say, you get the best of the number, you turn a loss into a push. So very happy with the Jags plus 10 today. For me, it was just like a huge mixed bag because I had an amazing 1 o'clock. I started with a loss because I was opposite you in the early game. I got a very good number on Seattle plus 3. I had to take that, would take it a million times over. It is what it is. So start the day with the loser. 1 o'clock games, fantastic. I thought everything was going to lose at one point. Everything won. I took some early Vikings in the week because of the Josh Allen situation, ended up cashing that. Ended up pushing the Jags, which would look like a sure loss at one point or another, end up winning the Lions. It just was a very good 1 o'clocks for me. And then a bunch of it goes back at 4 o'clock in the form of the Dallas Cowboys, who I played pretty close to post. And I had a very good number on the under in Rams Cardinals, get 2 backup quarterbacks, and Wolford throws a touchdown with 7 seconds left in that game to put the game over the total. So mixed bag today. I have the Chargers here on Sunday Night Football for a small play, so I'll be rooting them in down the stretch. But I don't think people really care about how well the day went for us, or if it didn't go well. They care about a recap. And let's start with where we always start. Anything that you felt strongly about going into this week that was solidified by today's games for you?
Even though I didn't make a play on it, I thought the Lions-Bears game was going to have a solid amount of points in it. So that came to fruition. I thought Justin Fields would have a good game in the sense of being able to run the ball, especially against the Lions defense. That was one piece. The other thing that was solidified is still that the Browns defense is terrible. And what I'm going to be interested to see is, are they going to make any? I know they have injuries and stuff. I mean, there's no two ways about it. But at some point, the offensive firepower is going to need to come in if they're going to try and compete. So those are the two things for me. Anything for you?
Yeah, so there was a couple right away. I had a very big bet on the Steelers today, And my whole thing going into this week was the Steelers are extremely undervalued. One, they get TJ Watt back, which kind of flew under the radar the entire week because he was not activated from injured reserve until Saturday. But it was expected that he was going to play, and he was on the field for like 90% of the snaps today. But on top of that, the Steelers coming off a bye, I'm looking at their schedule of teams that they face this year because I'm trying to figure out why my model's makes them a favorite at home to the Saints. Like, have you seen the teams the Steelers have played this year? Like, the easiest game on their schedule had been the Browns. Their second easiest game had been the Bucks. They just played like an absolute gauntlet of teams. So that was nice to get that win. It was excruciating when the Saints clawed back to make it 10-10 in that game because I thought it was, it's going south real quick. But that was one. The second one that was solidified that I unfortunately made $0 off of was Josh McDaniels is terrible. Like, how is this guy still a head coach? When people are listening to this tomorrow, the replay on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, whatever, there's probably a very good chance that he has been fired by then because he just lost to a guy that could not win at the high school football level in Jeff Saturday. And talk about embarrassing losses. It can't get much worse for the Raiders right now.
It can't. And I mean, I think I've said this 2 or 3 of this is, I think, our 10th week now doing this. I can't get the Raiders right, but maybe it's because of him. Like, maybe it's like that there's just maybe so much more talent there than he is getting out of. And this is now his second, what I would consider wildly failing coaching job.
Yep.
He just doesn't. I just haven't seen anything redeeming. I guess I'll say it that way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I wish I could. First of all, I got to talk about that game as a whole because how the Colts figured out, like, Jeff Saturday, who's I guess maybe all the distractions from Jim Irsay this week and the Jeff Saturday hire took away from the possibility that Matt Ryan could even play in this game, let alone start. But all of a sudden, it's like he's warming up as a starter half hour before the game. And if they actually plan that, that's actually a genius move by the organization. I love when teams do that, where they imagine if you're the Raiders, those guys are probably prepping for Ellinger all week long, watching Ellinger tape, and then they get Matt Ryan. Now, I'm not saying Matt Ryan's good or whatever, probably adapt on the fly, but I mean, that's just smart football, in my opinion. The Bills did the same thing. Now, the Bills lose today to the Vikings, but they didn't make it known that Josh Allen was going to start till the very last minute. And I think it's very smart on teams to have the opposing teams second guess everything or have to game plan for 2 different things. And I kind of like that. Bettors hate it for sure. Don't get me wrong. But I think it was pretty smart move by both the Colts and Bills today, even though it worked out for one and not the other, just to kind of keep things secret from the quarterback position.
I mean, there's 17 games in the season. Every little edge that you can get that pushes variance in your favor, you should be taking, as long as it's within the rules. And, I mean, even the betting markets didn't have a good idea about Josh Allen. You saw how much the line moved this week throughout the course of the week, consistently. Now, I was on the road myself yesterday. I was in Texas for the UT TCU game. Ooh. So I wasn't following the news as closely as I should. But, I mean, I was trying to follow the markets, and there was definitely some, what's the right word? Uncertainty.
So I'll just be flat out, honest with the audience here. This is the second time this year that I've gotten a heads up about a quarterback situation. So the first time was Justin Herbert against the Jags. And I got a message saying Justin Herbert is not going to play this week. Go and bet the Jags. So I took Jags plus 7.5 in that game. And then I got a message later on in the week on Saturday. I was at a family barbecue saying the team does not want Herbert to play, but he's adamant that he's going to play. He's going to play the game tomorrow. So, I'm like, I don't know if I buy this or not, or should I just hold my original position? I end up just holding the original position because I thought it was going to be valuable whether he played or not at that point. And it won. This week, I get a message early in the week saying, hey, can you bet something for me from a guy? I know right away this is a piece of information. He wants the Vikings. says Josh Allen's not going to play this week. They're going to rest him at least this week, if not more. I'm like, great, good stuff. Let's go bet the Vikings. Got the exact same message yesterday of, hey, just want to give you a heads up. Team doesn't want Allen to play. He's adamant that he's going to play through this. Great. What am I going to do in this situation? I let it ride anyways. Because again, I don't know if it's going to be, I don't know what his elbow situation is going to be like, but there's definitely some of this information that's going around. People are in the know. You have to trust the market and the way it's moving, but like there's going to be new information that becomes available, right? Like people are like, oh, nobody knew shit about Josh Allen. Well, somebody had very good info in the first place, and then that changed over the course of the week, and the market reacted to new info. So that's just a situation there. But it's the NFL. You got to be on. You got to have your nose on the pulse, essentially, and like react to information that becomes available. Quick question.
It's difficult to disconnect. You know what I mean? Like you can't really disconnect because the news does evolve. Sorry, go ahead. Who do we got in the audience chat here?
I find this interesting, this question about has Carr regressed or is McDaniels that bad? I mean, Carr's missing Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow as well. He has an O-line that can't block. The defense is miserable. I don't know. I feel like it's a McDaniels thing. I really do. I feel like they're going to bring in a new interim coach at some point and the offense is going to get back on track. Don't know for sure, though. My gut is that it's more coaching than Derek Carr.
I think so, too. And was Derek Carr ever really a superstar? I mean,
no.
That's how I look at it. I just think Josh McDaniels is getting the worst out of that team. Like whatever talent he has there, he is not even close to optimizing it.
Derek Carr's peak was good. In my opinion, right? Like he's, for the most part, he's been average to above average. His peak was like, okay, maybe like tier 2 on that level of, but he's always been inconsistent. He's never been able to cover spreads like this his entire career. Like they can't win by margin ever. Now, part of that's to do with their defense, but I mean, I feel like Josh McDaniel, I was about to say exactly what Randy just typed here, which is McDaniel should go join Judge and Patricia back in New England. That's like, I feel like he's just going to end up in New England again.
Yeah. I mean, I look at Derek Carr as a perennial Pro Bowl alternate. Because the guys who are still Pro Bowlers are probably in the playoffs, and he's just going to be that alternate guy. Like he's at that bottom end of that, top 5, 6 in the league, in a conference, not the league, conference.
Yep.
And nothing more than that.
Agreed. So those were our opinions that were solidified. Anything this week that greatly changed your opinion of a team? I have a couple off the top. Well, I guess I have 3, but I lumped 2 together. But I'll give you the floor to throw out if there's anything that has made you change your opinion of a team.
Change. I don't know how to grade the Titans even still. So I don't know that it's changed, but maybe my lean is going more to giving them a little bit more legitimacy.
I like that. I like that you say that though, because we just had the conversation about McDaniels, right? And coaching. And I feel like there's a hidden advantage that the Titans have in coaching. Like, I think Vrabel is just a friggin' good coach. Like I every week they just get it done. And you're like, I think there's like a hidden factor that does not appear in their box score metrics. That is just that they are a well-coached team. And I don't know if you buy that or not. It's tough for me to actually say that and buy that because I'm such a number. And my whole thing is like, well, if they were so well coached, it would appear in the box scores of the games. You would see that reflected in their final stats and whatever. But like, there's always been guys that just have a fine small edge where they're able to pull out stuff. And like, I had a lot of my friends who bet Denver today, and it's not that I'm wrong on NFL games all the time, as are you, as is everyone. But my whole thing was like, what? Like you got Mike Vrabel against Nathaniel Hackett, and you really want to bet the Denver Broncos. And listen, Barry Horowitz, pat yourself on the back here. But like, I think there's something there. I honestly just feel like there's something there.
So there's some coaches I think that manage to not raise their ceiling of the team, but they consistently raise the floor. So the floor is minimized. Like, you just don't get those too many C minus games from the Titans. Like, their range is it's a just different, call it distribution. Whereas you could see some teams that just absolutely skunk it up and are just god awful. And regardless of the talent he has on the field, he seems to make enough of it to consistently compete. Now, I don't know what the record is against the spread the last 3 seasons. I don't have that in front of me. But, I mean, it does just seem like they consistently are in the mix. They are not getting blown out margin of victory versus the spread.
Yep. Agreed with you. For me, definitely changed my tune on the Broncos offense. So I want to clarify here that I thought that coming out of their bye week, they obviously in that latter half of the London game against Jacksonville, offense looked so much better in the second half. They talked in their bye week about how they played at pace in the second half, a lot of no huddle. It was really working for them. They were going to try to do the same against Tennessee today. That was music to my ears because I've been saying, like, this is what the Broncos should do, right? They need to attack downfield more. They need to play with pace. That went out the window probably in like the first quarter of this game. Jerry Jeudy got hurt, which contributed to it. But the Titans were without so many players on defense in this game. Like, it was absurd. It was skeleton crew for them on defense. Amani Hooker out, Bud Dupree, obviously. Christian Fulton got injured in the game as well. It was just Jeffrey Simmons, of course, like their best defensive player. Broncos, like, I'm going to just come to terms with the offense is going to be, this is the offense. Like, it is what it is. So that was one. The second that I'm going to lump together that I have no idea what to make of these teams right now are Green Bay and Tampa Bay. Teams that
I want to talk about both of these, so please go ahead.
Okay. Just teams that looked left for dead for 9 weeks. Tampa today, they stuck with their bread and butter. They still ran very heavily on first down. I think it was a blessing for Tampa Bay that Leonard Fournette got hurt.
Agreed.
Because Rashad White and Keyshawn Vaughn looked a million times more explosive than he did, and they actually ran well in this game. How much of it is the Seahawks defense and the Seahawks having played nobody? I don't know. But no idea what to make of Tampa Bay. Green Bay, down 28-14. I thought, put a fork in them. It's over. Now Christian Watson emerges as like a number one receiver. And it's like, has this completely changed the offense going forwards? I have no clue. So I'm going to have a very, very difficult time with both Tampa and Green Bay in the weeks to come because I have no clue what they are.
So I think it's going to be very, very matchup specific. So I was going to bring up Watson too. The fact that, does Aaron Rodgers have somebody that could stretch the field a little bit now and just open up the offense a little bit? This is the first glimpse of anything we've seen from them that is, remotely promising. So that's one piece, and against a pretty strong Dallas defense as a whole. And then on the Tampa Bay side of things, it's hard for me to gauge how much. Part of the reason why I bet Tampa this week was because of a couple of people coming back and Seattle's strength of schedule and who they've played. I'm not going to overreact to it. I'm okay with the play that I made today, but it'll be interesting to see how the market judges these two teams and whether they kind of snap back to overvaluing them. And, because a lot of people were stuck on their priors pretty solidly for the last 8-9 weeks and not moving too much off of them.
Well, I will admit to you that I was in my own camp. So I definitely was on, I will call it, quote unquote, the square side of Seattle Tampa today, which was Seattle. And I definitely was like in the community of people that I deal with on my lonely island there. I could not understand all the Tampa Bay love. Now, there was definitely, the biggest argument in favor of Tampa this week that I heard was a criticism of Seattle, in that Seattle has played nobody. And that came up a lot of times, right? Just like Seattle's played nobody this year. But then I went and looked at Tampa's schedule and I'm like, Tampa's played a whole bunch of nobodies. Like, Tampa's not only played nobodies, but they're losing outright to Pittsburgh at, they're making they lost outright to Carolina and PJ Walker. Like, so I didn't really get that number. And I think, the Seahawks made a pretty grave error in that game early on by running it so heavily on early downs. And you saw later in the game when they opened it up. Now, granted, the score plays a part in it, and the opposing defense, it's going to defend differently based off the score. But when they opened up the passing game, they were pretty strong and solid all around. So I don't know. I was wrong about Tampa this week. It's likely I'll be wrong about them going forwards. Don't really have, I don't know if I'm going to be able to figure these teams out. Like, we're going to get to next week's games and obviously predict the lines, but I have no clue what either. Like, I think the range, let's say, we talk about ranges of teams all the time. I think the range on both of these teams is super wide.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to struggle with both of those, because the market finally ticked Green Bay down a decent chunk, and are they just going to snap right back to what they were? I don't know. And who's Green Bay playing this week? They got Tennessee.
Tennessee. Yeah. That's going to be an interesting one. One last question here, or commentary, I guess. Is Sean McVay solved by the league? The Rams look like they've looked so. Like, the Rams are a team that I would have put in the same boat as Green Bay and Tampa Bay, right? Where they're just like, okay, no, this team's not going to get it right. They got so much worse today, granted with a backup quarterback, but that's like a franchise that is going to be a disaster for years because of the amount of first round picks that they've given away to acquire all this talent. And they have no O-line. And I mean, who knows Stafford had a concussion this week, so he couldn't play this week, but there's rumors that he might need elbow surgery in the offseason as well, or some sort of throwing arm surgery. I don't know that it's necessarily McVay, but his conservative decision-making and like style of running offense, it's definitely caught up to him at this point. Like, it might be time to just say the Rams need to move on from Sean McVay.
Well, they might need to just tear it all down, period. And I guess everybody has different philosophies as a fan of what they would want their team to do. The Rams tried to go absolutely all in as much as they could to try and pick off one Super Bowl, knowing that they were completely mortgaging their future. To me, it's not that much different from how we might look at going forward in fourth down situations. It's like just maximizing your Super Bowl EV. And are you happy with just one? Because dynasties and franchises don't really happen too often unless you have a Patrick Mahomes or what Josh Allen is doing, like where you're going to compete, at least get to the conference championships expected every year.
Randy says, imagine if the Rams didn't win the Super Bowl last year. I often think about that and how lucky the Rams were to have faced the Bengals instead of the Chiefs or Bills last year. Because, listen, I mean, they got it. They got their win. But, listen, at the end of the day, any fan is going to trade a Super Bowl win for years of suffering. So they did it. They did what was accomplished. But, man, it does feel like there are going to be years of suffering for that team. Before we get into next week's games, Monday Night Football tomorrow night, we have or for those listening, could be tonight after the fact, Eagles and Commanders. Looks like Jahan Dotson is going to play for the Commanders. Market is pretty much at -11, total 43.5. Anything that is of interest to you, Clive, for the Monday Night Football game?
No. When we did the show last week, I think I had this at 10.5. Not anything that I think is really worth a play for me. I'll be interested to see when a team finally does kind of adjust a little bit to Philly. I don't think Washington's going to be that team, but I'll just be watching it from the perspective of, is anybody going to make an adjustment, and can anybody do something to slow the Eagles down in the first half as opposed to some of their slower second halves?
There are some historical trends, but I know what I'm saying here, people, by the way. I'm not a trends person, but there are some historical trends that point to Washington being in a valuable spot, having gotten blown out in the divisional battle earlier this year against the Eagles, right? Now, that was a different quarterback, Carson Wentz, but historically speaking, that has been a profitable spot in that a lot of people think back to that game and say, oh, the Eagles just dominated them Why can't they do it again? I think if I'm applying logic to a trend like that, it's more so that the Eagles will try to employ the same type of game plan. Washington will be a little bit more ready for it and have new wrinkles in the mix. Now, I'm not just my number in the game is very close to what the market is here. Don't have a play there, but that I do think that that is an interesting argument that was presented to me today. I don't dismiss stuff like that, by the way. It's not the way that I handicap games. I don't find a lot of value in it, but when there's logic that can be applied to something, I'm all ears for it. So go ahead.
It's a little different from the it's so hard to beat a team 3 times in a season. It's not the same thing. I mean, you're talking about 2 different things, especially when you're talking about a spread too. So, I mean, some of these trends have signal to them. You just have to figure out how much merit there really is there.
Yes. Scott says the Tampa Bay Green Bay range of outcomes are finish 500 to make the NFC Championship game. I mean, I would go further than that. Like the NFC is not strong enough where neither of these teams could make the Super Bowl if they catch a run. Like they have both have Hall of Fame quarterbacks. I don't think that they will, but I think that there is a scenario where either of them can make the Super Bowl. All right. We'll get into it. Week 11 coming up next week. Bunch of new people in the YouTube this week. Thank you very much. For those that are here, please hit the subscribe button on the Forward Progress channel. Thumbs up if you do enjoy the content. It goes a long way for us. And then obviously you'll get notifications when we go live going forwards in future weeks. Also, tell your friends about it. Just tell your friends. If you enjoyed the show, you want to give them a good weekly recap for them to listen to, preview of the week. Tell them to go listen. They don't have to tune in live. We're going to do week 11. I have seen one line this week. Clive, I will let you know. It was spoiled for me when I was doing the Primetime with Suma earlier today. So I know what the Green Bay, Tennessee line opened at. I'm not going to guess what it is, but I will guess where it's going to move. We will go through as many of these as possible. For those who are on YouTube following, if you want to comment, if you know the lines, don't play the guessing game. If you don't know the lines and want to predict where they're going to move, where they're going to end up, do want to make this more of a community-based show. We do value it. We see it in real time. I'd be very interested in some of the guesses on these games. So participate if you're interested. If not, sit back and enjoy as we go through all the games. Thursday Night Football. Aforementioned Green Bay Packers stay at home at Lambeau Field, and they welcome the Tennessee Titans to town. Tennessee's pretty beat up on defense. They're probably not going to get a whole ton of bodies back on a short week. Green Bay also had a bunch of injuries going into this week as well. And there were a few players that went down on defense. My memory, eludes me here in terms of who specifically it was. But I know that they didn't have Devondre Campbell today. Rashawn Gary's on IR. Eric Stokes got moved to IR. So it's a pretty battered defense as well. I will let you start here. And then I won't really give my opinion on, I'll spoil it for you. You don't care if I spoil it for you afterwards, but let's start with you, Clive. Side and total, Packers hosting the Titans.
So I really don't know what to do for a total, but for a side, I look at one of the things I do if people are new to the show, I really do pay attention to the markets. I am not as much of a bottom-up guy in the NFL as Rob is and as some other people, nor as much of it as I do in the NBA. So that being said, I mean, the market had Tennessee at almost like a 3.5 point under average ranking before this week. And now it's probably around -1, a little bit more than that. That's a pretty big adjustment. And I'm not sure that it's completely warranted either. I think the answer for that is somewhere in between. So if the market's grading them at what they were at this week and what Green Bay was at this week, then Green Bay is probably only a 3-point favorite. But I don't think that's right. So I think it should probably be 3.5, and it probably moves more towards Green Bay. But I really don't know. I have a hard time with Green Bay this week because they had Green Bay at the opposite. Green Bay basically dropped almost 3 points in terms of market rating. Injuries are important to that too. But so, I mean, I probably open that at 3.5 Green Bay, or maybe a heavily juiced 3.
Okay. So I love when we start with games like this where we do not see the game the same way. So the opening line, according to someone in the primetime chat earlier today, was Green Bay -2 in the game. So you would have significant value on Green Bay. I do agree with you in that I think the most likely closing number in this game is going to be Packers -3. But I would have a lot more interest, I think, I have to break down the matchup, in Titans +3 than I would laying 3 with Green Bay. So I can see I can see double-sided action on this game where you have people who are going to now take a stance that, okay, Green Bay's back. This is a short price. And honestly, a lot of people looking to fade the Titans altogether, who just keep covering and keep winning games somehow, or at least staying in games. But I still have no interest in backing Green Bay, nor do I think that they are actually good.
That's fair. And I'm not surprised that the line opened at -2 because you're asking a lot of the market to make such a big adjustment off of Green Bay just winning, an OT game against Dallas. Where do I think it closes? I probably do think it closes 3 at some level. I don't think it closes at 2.5 unless there's something injury related that I'm undervaluing. So I don't know. For a total, geez. I mean, the Titans Broncos was 40, and then Green Bay Dallas was 44. Geez, I don't know. Maybe 42, something like that.
I don't know the total because it wasn't spoiled for me, but I would have guessed before this week it would be 41. I do think the Packers offense is going to be upgraded. So I think 42 is a good number. Like I wouldn't know what to bet there. The Titans are like just looking at the last, since week 5, the Titans haven't played a game that's gone into the 40s. Now, some of that's Malik Willis. Who knows how healthy Ryan Tannehill is? He did have like a quarterback run today for like 10 yards up the middle where he came up hobbling afterwards, like just tried to shake his leg off. He got tackled at the leg. Green Bay's totals have been they have been playing mostly higher scoring games with the exception of last week. So they're starting to come around. And I honestly think the Packers defense is, despite the fact they turned the Cowboys over a couple times today, I do think that they're pretty overrated as well. So I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm more inclined to believe that it goes up just due to the amount of defensive injuries for both teams.
Yeah, I was thinking like my first initial instinct was 41.5, and then I kind of ticked it up a hair, and maybe that's probably me more thinking that it would go up if it was 41.5, but I can't imagine this getting past 42.5, let's say. So it's probably in that range somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, completely polar opposites in terms of performance today, right? Like the Titans averaged 5.1 yards per play. That's actually not even a bad number for them, sadly. But their series conversion rate was the second worst of any team in the NFL today at 54.2%. The only team worse was the New Orleans Saints. Green Bay's offense, 6.8 yards per play against the Dallas defense, 0.23 EPA per play. I mean, this is like as close to a complete offensive performance as we've seen from them in a while. Now, granted, it didn't seem that way for the majority of the game, but once they got down 28-14, the Christian Watson got unleashed there, and it completely changed. So I don't know how the market is going to see this one because I think that Green Bay's trending towards an over team and the Titans continue to remain an under team. Even though they have the defensive injuries, they just keep shutting down every single offense they face, including Patrick Mahomes last week at Arrowhead.
Yeah, and Green Bay does want to run the ball. I mean, Aaron Rodgers had 220-something yards, but I think he only had like 14 completions. So it's not even like there were some chunk plays in there for sure. But they still ran the ball close to 40 times.
Yeah. Okay. Game 2. So we'll move into the Sunday card. The Baltimore Ravens, coming off of a bye week, host the Carolina Panthers, who have an extended rest because they played on Thursday night.
Yeah. I feel like this has to be double digits.
100%. I would bet my life it opens double digits.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how far it goes.
Yep.
I think 10's too light. I think Baltimore would get money there. I don't know at what point somebody would be excited to take Carolina despite this week's result.
Is John Harbaugh one of the coaches that has crazy numbers off of a bye week?
That's a good question. I don't know. Anybody in the chat have an idea
yeah,
of that trend?
that would actually be good if anyone does know, because I definitely know Andy Reid is one. Everyone's like, Andy Reid off a bye, Andy Reid off a bye. I think Harbaugh is another one. Like extra time to prepare. Harbaugh is great. All that stuff is starting to get baked in the market, and like people aren't dumb, and you know they see that now. I'm going to guess that the spread is 13 in this game. I'm assuming PJ Walker is still going to start because Baker Mayfield was dressed as a backup last week. I don't know.
Smashing his head into his teammates, like into their helmets for some apparent reason. So,
Darnold might be back, but I don't think they're not going to pull PJ. Like PJ Walker won a game last week. He's not going to get benched for Darnold or Mayfield this week. Like it's not going to be the week. So I'm assuming PJ Walker. I'm going to say Ravens minus 13. And I think Carolina will draw money.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was thinking in terms of like my numbers and my values or whatever you want to call it, has it 11.5, 12. But I think it opens higher than that, especially with the rest factored in. And I'm not even talking about Harbaugh, just in general, period. But I do think Carolina would get a little bit of money there too. So I agree with you. I think if it ended at 11.5 or 12, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd be more surprised if it went to 14,
Yes. Jamie says Google says 9. Jamie says Google says 9-6 against the spread for Harbaugh off a bye. No idea if that's accurate. Appreciate someone. I mean, I could have used Google myself, but I appreciate someone taking the initiative to do so. Anyways, thank you very much for that. I feel like that's a thing every year. I don't know why I feel like that's a thing. I don't pay attention to it, but I do feel like it is a thing. I feel like the Carolina defense is good enough, and they've been in this role a few times this year where they've just been like a pesky underdog. And honestly, as dumb as this sounds, I don't know how many teams in the NFL I trust to lay big numbers anymore anyways. Like it feels like all these games come down to the wire regardless. So why not take 13 points if that's the number with Carolina? And I do think that will happen if it's that high.
Yeah. What are you thinking for a total?
So just quickly pulling my efficiency numbers for both of these teams. Baltimore's final scores have all kind of hovered in the mid 40s lately, and Carolina all over the place, but you really don't know. I'm going to say 44. And I actually don't even know that it's like, I just think that that's the right number. Like, I don't know which way it will go.
Yeah, I got 44.5, so not too much different there. And I honestly don't know which way it would move. I would think if the market deems that number to be off, it's almost purely going to be related to like almost like a pacing issue, right? Like the way that they expect the game to kind of go in terms of whether it be Foreman just getting a ton of carries or something along those lines.
Should be noted, obviously, we are doing this on a Sunday night for the following Sunday. It is November football. It could be, inclement weather in Baltimore. We can't predict that stuff. So we're just saying based off of the information that we have available now. And I do want to preface that going into the next game as well, which could potentially be another weather game because we have the Buffalo Bills who stay at home taking on the Cleveland Browns.
Somebody put in the chat something about Watson coming back week 11, but I think that's too early.
So no, he's back. He's got a 12-game suspension, so he's back week 13 or 11 games. I don't remember. I think he's back week 13.
So do I. I thought it was an 11-game suspension. There was a bye, so I think he's back week 13.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure that's right.
So it's still Jacoby. Man, that defense really does just continue to look worse and worse too.
It's very scary because they gave up 7.3 yards per play to the Dolphins today. The Dolphins had a series conversion rate of 90.6%. That is absurdly high. Like that's got to be 99th percentile. Dolphins had a success rate offensively today of 62%. The next highest team in the league was 55%, the Kansas City Chiefs, just to put that into perspective. So, it's really, really concerning. And they're like at full health now, which is even sadder.
So I guess we're also thinking about this from the perspective that Josh Allen's playing and at full health, quotes for those who are listening tomorrow morning. I don't know, 13? Like,
oh, that's high.
I know, but I wrote down 10.5, but it doesn't feel like enough.
So, like, here's the thing. What was the closing number today for Vikings Bills? 6.5.
6.5.
Bills close 6.5. I am of a believer that if there was no Josh Allen injury designation today, the Bills would not have closed south of 7. My personal opinion.
Yeah.
7.5 or higher. So the market is downgrading Buffalo for Josh Allen. Is that going to happen again next week is the question. It's very hard to say.
Maybe they split the difference of like that point. Because I do think 7.5. That's what Eric and I think said last week too. Either 7.5 or 8 should have probably been the number. Say maybe they cut that in half. Take a half a point off. Where do you have the Vikings versus the Browns? The market continues to have the Vikings as still like probably 2.5, maybe 3 points above an average team, where the Browns are probably at average or worse. So I mean, maybe they open 10.
So we have guesses of 8.5. Bills would have been 9.5 with full health Allen today, in my opinion. I don't know. I think that's a little bit steep personally.
That might have been a look headline. I could see that as a potential thing, but I don't know.
I'm going to call this one a galaxy brain game. Okay. And here's what I mean. I've seen this happen in the market. This is my specialty. For people who don't know, I've been betting the NFL forever. I've been betting it professionally now going on, 6 or 7 years or whatever. Sometimes well, sometimes poorly. But one thing I do well is understand markets. I'm very similar to Clive in the way that I think. This is going to be a game where people will struggle to see how Cleveland is only an underdog by a certain amount. And they're going to galaxy brain themselves into saying the sports books want you to, they're setting the trap on the Bills. And you got to take Cleveland because of that. The Browns have better peripherals than people realize. They also play a very wide range of games. Think about them beating the Bengals, for example, and how great they looked in that game versus how terrible they looked against the Dolphins today. They have a very wide range on what they could be. They probably played to the lower end of their range today. I'm going to say it's a single-digit spread, Bills minus 9.5, and it's going to be one of those where you will see next week on Sunday, how is this number only this? Sportsbooks know something's wrong with Josh Allen. They know the injury's worse. You have to take the Browns. Hold your nose and take the Browns. That's what I see being the sentiment around this game this week.
And that's fair. And for anybody listening, where I kind of come up with that number too is you have a situation with the Dolphins and the Browns. Dolphins were at home. They were a juiced 3 to 3.5 point favorite today. And the market probably does have the Bills as a whole at least 8 points better than the Dolphins based off of the market numbers all season. So it's hard to get to. Sometimes the numbers get conflated from market ratings to where we think the numbers are going to go to and what it should be.
The Bills could not stop the Vikings running game today for the most part. Probably a decent matchup because the Bills invite teams to run. They've done this for years now. That's kind of what Cleveland wants to do. I could see a number of what I'm interested in digging into this game and what my final number is going to be on it. From a total perspective, seems like it has to be in the upper 40s to me. I'm thinking like 48.5. I wouldn't be surprised if it draws under money, to be honest with you. The total today closed a little bit lower than I would have expected it. And I think, again, this is related to Josh Allen, elbow, so on and so forth. But I think that this has to be like a 48.5 type of thing.
I'm on that exact number, so I'm with you.
All right. We move on. Eagles and Colts. I'm going to skip over the Eagles, Colts, and the Commanders, Texans because, I mean, do you want to do them really quickly? It's just very challenging because the game tomorrow night is going to have such an impact on what those numbers open at.
Yeah, and in part, I don't want, not that it's being irresponsible, that's not the right word. I don't want to be responsible for people taking action on things and it being a little too early without the games being played out. I mean, we could. I'm more than happy to do it, but I'd say we go back to them if we have time later.
Sure, that sounds good. I like that plan. All right, we will move on to the two teams coming off their bye week, AFC East matchup of the New England Patriots hosting the New York Jets.
Pat's at home. No, Pat's at Pat's at home.
Pat's at home.
1 o'clock game. The market still kind of has the Pats as this slightly above average team. I don't know where they moved the Jets off of last week or how much they moved them. I'll
give this. I'll give this a start. You're going to hear a lot this week about Zach Wilson against Bill Belichick. This is like going to be a theme because historically speaking, I believe he has stunk against Bill Belichick. So that's going to be a topic of conversation.
And they just played 2 weeks ago too. 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago.
I bet the Patriots in that game.
As did I.
They closed -3 on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What I think will happen in this game is that the Patriots will open somewhere around -5.5, and it will get bet down a lot.
I'm with you. I don't think I was at that game. I was at that Jets-Pats game, and everything that I saw made me think that the line that came out for that game was pretty close to accurate. And the Jets have probably improved a little bit, but Mac Jones didn't look great either. So I think maybe this closes at 3.5. And where it opens is somewhere between that 4.5 to 5.5 range, probably. But I think it closes at 3.5.
I think I'm in the same boat as you. So I'll tell you something about that game. The Patriots offense stunk. You're right. In any other week, there's no way that they should have actually won that game. But they did because Zach Wilson, he had no idea. He was trying to throw a ball away once and he threw it right into a Patriots defender's hands. I don't know what he was doing in that game, but it was painful to watch. With that said, the Pats are not a team that you're going to expect to win by margin all that often. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be very appealing to get points against them regularly.
Agreed. We had that happen last week, right? Where the line opened at 6, and didn't that line come back? Maybe I'm getting weeks confused. When they had the Colts, where did the line end up?
Oh, that's a good question. So it ended 5.5, or did it come back?
So yeah, bookmaker had 4.5 -101 or circa whatever. Circa had -5, but it opened at 6. So same thing. I think we had that sentiment when we talked, was that it was going to be a situation where the Pats are going to get too much credit and nobody's going to want to give those points and the line moves back. Yep. Similar.
This is going to be a super low total without question.
Yeah.
In the 30s.
Probably 39.5.
I think so.
I don't remember what they opened or what they closed at in the Jets. 40. They closed at 40.
Especially after the offensive performance last time, the performances on offense, the last time these teams played, low total. Has to be in the 30s. Don't know whether that'll get bet up or down. I'm inclined to say down.
Same.
But I'm not quite sure. Before we get to the next game, I'm going to give myself the second Barry Horowitz pat on the back of the entire show because of what just happened in this Sunday night football game here. Up 19-16, 4th and goal from the 2-yard line. Kyle Shanahan sends out the field goal unit, kicks the field goal, 49ers go up 22-16. Talked about this all week, but I hate laying big points with Kyle Shanahan because he does stuff like this. And it
His
will
second,
drive
4th and 2 from the goal that he's kicked today.
Yeah. So the Chargers will have the ball with 58 seconds left. They'll have to drive the whole field to score a touchdown. But God, I hate Kyle Shanahan as a big favorite. Just praying for no pick six or anything here. No crazy stuff. Maybe they'll coach the 49ers. Shanahan will coach them to go down if something happens. Anyways, I had to interrupt to say that. Because whenever
I'm going to get you that handprint that Barry Horowitz used to have like on his back so that you can just, turn around a little bit, get it on camera, do a little of this.
So rest in peace to Alan Dinky, who passed away earlier this year. But he did get me a cameo from Barry Horowitz a couple years ago, which was fantastic. I'll always remember that. But that's every time I do the Horowitz pat on the back now, it kind of feels empty because I do, remember that in particular. So rest in peace, Dink. I know you're out there. You're probably listening to this stuff right now and still enjoying sports out there. All right. We'll keep it moving. Okay. The New York Giants coming off a win against the Houston Texans today, which I might talk about a little bit. They stay home. Detroit Lions come to town.
So I was surprised that the Bears got up to a full 3 at a bunch of books today. I did not think that was the right way that line should move. I thought it should close at 2.5 at worst, but I was thinking more like 2. Anyway, how much better does the market grade or rate the Giants than the Bears? It's probably significant. I mean, it's probably at this point at least 2 points. I would say at least. Probably more, probably 3. And what did the Giants open at this week? Did they open at 7 or did they open at 6? I honestly don't remember.
They opened 7 and it was one-way action Houston for the majority of the week, which I honestly I at the time I didn't understand. After watching the game, I now understand, but it was one-way action Houston.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe this game opens 6, maybe 5.5, but I think it gets bet towards the Lions anyway.
Agreed. So I think I actually don't know where I would open this game. I think I know where the game's going to close. But I could do, I could do a number of different things here. So probably a lot of people noticed what I noticed about the Giants today, which is that they stink. And people have noticed this over the course of the year. Houston had 6 trips into the red zone today. They scored 1 touchdown on 6 red zone trips. The Giants out-yarded in terms of yards per play, 6.5 to 5.5. The Texans had a better success rate on offense. They did not have a better EPA, but that's because they turned the ball over twice. The Giants are not very good. And the Giants laying points, I would rather have an enema tomorrow than lay points with the Giants. And I think a lot of people feel that way. So probably going to get money on the Lions no matter what happens here. I think the number is going to close like Giants expensive 3 or 3.5.
I agree. I just don't know what it's going to open at. I thought 7 was too much against the Texans.
We got some guesses. Giants 4, Giants 3.5, but Lions take money. I'm kind of in the same boat. You're going to get a lot of Jared Goff in outdoor weather again next week, which, by the way, didn't seem like a huge problem today. Granted, they did get a gift pick 6 as well against the Bears. Like an absolute gift from Justin Fields, which was maybe skewing our perception of the Lions right now too, which is entirely possible because the Lions are bad.
Yeah. What actually would be interesting to me is what the total is going to open at. Because the Lions defense is terrible. And Daniel Jones has the ability to play. He won't break the long runs like Justin Fields, but he can break a team's back with 3rd down conversions and things like that if the Lions give that to them. they've had a lot of, I think, struggles against quarterbacks who are mobile. They've had a lot of struggles, period, on defense. Who are we kidding? But if the Giants Bears were at 48.5, what are the Giants Lions open at? Both of these games were also outdoors. I know I live in New Jersey, but I have no idea what the weather's going to be like next week. 47, 46.5.
Less. I'll tell you
because
why.
of the Giants.
The Giants have played one game this season that's gone over 44 points. A single game. Now, granted, this is the Lions. I get it. But I think 47 is too high. I do. I think let's put it, you might be right, actually. I think you're more in tune with totals than I am. But if it's 47, it's going to catch under money. Like I'm very convinced of that.
So somebody just put in the chat rain in the 40s.
Well, right now, but like this, I believe, as someone who's been trying to predict weather and get out ahead of the weather for years now in the NFL, this is it's a fool's errand. It's not.
And I will say this, I did agree with the market movement based off of what the Giants Texans opened at the 38.5, 39. I thought that number should move up, and based on everything you're telling me too, because I didn't see any of this game, them ending up in the red zone 6 times, the over was probably the right play, and it just, whatever, wrong side of variance if you were an over better this week.
I bet the Giants, and I watched a lot of the end of this game because I was constantly sweating the Texans moving the ball down the field, stalling in the red zone. So I think the total is going to be 45. I think in all likelihood, there will be over money because the Lions, there's going to be just too much appeal of getting a Lions total in the mid 40s. But the Giants play like exclusively low scoring games. Exclusively.
Yeah. All right. If anybody's writing these down and track them, lock me in at 45.5 of what I think this is going to open at.
All right. New Orleans Saints hosting the Los Angeles Rams. I think for assumption here, we can assume that Matt Stafford is going to be back. I think that's pretty safe.
And is Cooper Kupp going to be out?
I think yes. He looks like that. Looks like I got to consult the Twitter doctors, which honestly I do every week. But it looks like high ankle sprain territory to me. Like he couldn't put weight down. Yeah. So I'm bracing for Cooper Kupp to be out. And I will make my number based off of that, which is going to be a very large adjustment versus like where would this have been if Cooper Kupp? No one wants any piece of the Rams, right? Like the Rams are awful. They absolutely stink.
And they're somehow still like right in that middle tier of actually the upper part of probably the top or the middle third, right? Like they're probably still graded in the market somewhere between 10 and 14 when healthy.
So like if the Rams with Stafford played the Saints this week, fully healthy, in this game, I think it would have been a pick. Like the market values the Rams way higher than I value the Rams. So
I'm with you there.
I will incorporate that into my number. I think the Saints are going to be a 3-point favorite in this game. I think people might also galaxy brain themselves into taking the Rams again here, or just like their market implied rating is way better than I actually think they are. But I think it's going to be Saints -3, and the Rams are more likely to take money.
Yeah, I mean I think it's hard to have the Saints over a favorite of anybody that's at least in that middle tier. But I think with those injuries, I think 3 it opens and then probably maybe closes at 2.5, something like that.
I'm very interested in this total as well.
21 1/3.
It's going to be a super low total, right? I mean, like the Saints have now played 3 low-scoring games in a row. Offense is coming down to earth. The Rams play exclusively low-scoring games. with the exception of week 2, which was like a 58-point game that they played in. But they've played tons in the 30s and 20s this year. Like, this is, with no Cooper Kupp, this has got to be a total in the 30s, I would say.
I think 38.5, and maybe it hovers there. I wouldn't be shocked if it gets bet down. Well, they are indoors too in New Orleans. I'm thinking 38.5.
I'm with you. I'm right there. Okay, we're pretty.
I don't want to
pretty,
watch this game.
No,
I just don't. No, I don't want to watch this.
No, neither do I. We're getting into, it's like week 11 now. We're getting into some territory of, I'll call it woof territory. Buzz,
The
your
1 o'clock
girlfriend.
slate, the whole 1 o'clock slate's really rough now that I look at it. Like, there's not a single game on there that's particularly appealing.
Well, that's why we bet the games.
We have games to bet on. True.
Yep. Bears at Falcons. Speaking of games that don't look appealing. Falcons lost to the Panthers, man. They're getting downgraded hard in market next week. Hard.
Yeah, I almost feel like, these two teams are not even, but they're a lot closer than they would have been if it was this week. So I don't know. I probably have the Falcons at this point, maybe 1 point better on a neutral.
Market loves the Bears, man. Like, the closing line today was, I can't say it was absurd because I didn't bet the Lions hard enough prior to the game, but it felt wrong. Like, it felt very wrong.
Yeah, I agree. Where's this game? Sorry.
It's in Atlanta.
Atlanta 2 or 2.5. And I don't even know who takes money at that.
So yeah, like,
I wrote down 3, by the way, but I'm kind of like, as I'm thinking through it, I feel like at 3 the Bears get money, like, very quickly, which is why I would say 2.5.
If these teams played this week, like today, I would have made Atlanta a 3.8 point favorite in this game. My personal numbers. The market would not have, because I'm lower on Chicago than the market. I think the market would have made it 2.5 or something like that.
Coming into today or after today? Okay.
Into today. And then now you have Atlanta loses. Chicago, I mean, they also lose, but like, offense looked good again. I have a feeling that this is going to close. Oh man, I don't know. I think it's going to open Atlanta minus 1.5.
Okay.
And they're going to get money. I think Atlanta is going to get played. Rest advantage. Bears lose to a lot. Like, I get that the Bears offense is better. Their defense sucks. Fields is still prone to a mistake.
So at 1.5, you think it probably still closes? How far do you think it goes? 2?
Maybe even to 3. Like, I do.
Okay. Like I said, I wrote down 3, but I'm kind of I talked myself out of it.
Yeah. So that's sort of what I was thinking at first. I was like, well, 3 I feel like is the right number, but it can't be. Like, who is not going to bet Chicago at 3, right?
Right, exactly.
You need it's the same logic as when the Bears got to 3 against the Lions, which for me was, now you need the Bears to win by 4 to win a bet. That's bad. I don't want that. And the same thing would happen if it's Falcons minus 3, right? It's like, now I need the Falcons to win by 4 to win a bet. No, I don't want that. Like, that would be one-way train on the Bears.
Right. So, and then I guess the total
super high.
Yeah.
Bears games are flying. Like, this might have, today was what, 31-30? I think this was their lowest scoring game in the last 3 weeks. They have transformed very quickly into an over
team.
Yes.
Agreed. Yeah. So this against the Lions, they closed at 48.5, and it did cruise over that number. Indoor game in Atlanta. What
Indoor
did
on turf, like this is a Justin Fields. You're going to see like a 67-yard touchdown run by Fields next week. I'm
and
going
you
to.
might see another pick six.
You actually might, yeah. The problem with Atlanta is they're so run heavy, right? So that's not conducive to overs in general. But this has to be high 40s, 49.5.
Yeah, I was thinking 48.5.
Okay.
I have a hard time making this number higher than the Lions Bears game.
True. Good point. The only reason I say that is because the Lions Bears game flew over.
Yeah, no, that's true. I think I'd probably just open it at 48.5 and see what happens.
By the way, so like the Lions defense is horrendous. Don't get me wrong. It's miserable, but there's other terrible defenses, and I put the Atlanta Falcons in that category, by the way, because they don't have AJ Terrell. They don't have Casey Hayward. Their defense cannot generate a pass rush whatsoever. And honestly, the Bears defense is in the same category too. The Bears, the Raiders, the Lions, the Texans, the Falcons, all these defenses are terrible. So
yeah, and the Bears lost one of their big pieces by trading them. Roquan Smith is gone.
and Robert Quinn too.
Yeah, Robert Quinn too. So it's like, here's the thing. Even if Justin Fields is pressure free, how good of a quarterback is he? I almost think he's better when he does get pressure because he scrambles and then, something crazy happens.
I'm not a guy. I'm not that guy who like typically wants to punch a wall watching a game or something like that, or throw something. Like I've had friends like that with the anger management stuff. Like they're losing a bet, they chuck the remote at the TV or do whatever. You know what I'm saying? The closest I've come to doing that in a long time was one of the Chicago Bears touchdowns today, where they could not the Lions were in the backfield. They're looking at like trying to wrap up with these ankle tackles, and he breaks free and runs in for a touchdown. And I'm like, he is that guy. Like he just finds a way. I don't know how he does it, man. There's at least a handful of absurd plays a game. And I'll tell you right now, the Falcons defense, that front seven, he's going to pick up a lot of rushing yardage next week.
Watch out for the props then, people. Take a look. Take a look early when that one launches, because that can get pretty high.
This comment is great.
If
fading the Giants is pissing in the kitchen sink, betting on the Falcons is like pissing in the shower. I don't even. Oh man,
that's not bad.
All right, Raiders, maybe with a new coach, maybe still with Josh McDaniels. They go to Denver to take on the Broncos.
The 4:00 slate. It's not starting any better.
Oh yeah. These teams, like I'd love to not bet on either of these teams. I'll still set a number on the game, but I'd love to not bet on either of these teams.
The market still doesn't hate the Raiders, and I don't know if that changes after this week or not. I don't know what it's going to take to change that.
All right, here's my prediction. You're right, by the way, on the market still doesn't hate the Raiders. I'm the idiot that bet the Raiders against the Jags last week and laid points on the road. Don't get me started on that. I think this is a Broncos -3. And I think if the Raiders have a new head coach, they will get bet. If the Raiders still have Josh McDaniels, the Broncos will get bet.
I think that's reasonable. I was thinking Broncos 2.5, but I think I don't know. This is it's just so bad watching Denver play too offensively. Like I don't. And are we assuming Judy's going to be out too?
I think he got carded off, so he's multi-week injury, I would say.
So yeah, that's kind of why I just added a 2.5. And then for a total, I don't know, 40.
These are like the polar opposites too, right? Denver, like and then Vegas always plays mid 40s or higher. It's like clockwork, man. Vegas games, average defense, always 47, somewhere in that range. The I'm looking at the Broncos' final scores this year. Week 4, there was 55 points. That was the game they played the Raiders, right? It was 32-23. That's the only game this year.
Was there a pick six that game? I feel like there was. Anyway.
Fumble six. No, Melvin
Fumble
Gordon
six.
or something. Maybe.
Yeah.
I feel like Melvin Gordon fumbled a couple. I don't know what I'm thinking. I think he fumbled a couple of times in that game. Or the who was the back? Mike Boone had like some. It was a weird game. I remember having agony watching the game.
That was Monday night too, wasn't it?
No, it was like a Sunday. It was a Sunday, I think. Okay,
so,
but sorry to cut you off, Clive.
No, that's all right. Denver, Tennessee was 40. Colts, Raiders 41.5. I can't see it being more than 41.5.
No.
Maybe 41?
Yeah, I think 41. And I don't know where it'll go, but I'm inclined to say it goes to the under.
I'd agree.
Broncos point totals this year, aside from week 4 when they played the Raiders, their final scores have been 33, 25, 21, 21, 35, 25, 38, 27. They have somehow played 5 games this year. Of their 9, have finished in the 20s.
That's pretty brutal.
I bet they're over today, like an idiot.
Yeah,
it was one of my losers in the early slate. Got good CLV. I bet over 37. It closed like 39 and a half, something like that.
That's rough. I mean, they're just not a good football team.
No. Okay. Chiefs, Chargers. Chargers game just ended. They lose 22-16. Well, I say just ended a little while ago now. I'm going rotation number order. This has been flexed to Sunday Night Football. So we get another Chargers primetime game. Your guess is as good as mine on this one.
So, honest question for however much you're willing to divulge. I thought 2 things here. I thought the market is bumped San Francisco up too much, and I thought they've knocked the Chargers down a little too much. I thought this game today should have ended probably around 6. I know it ended at 6, and it sounds fishy to say.
Yeah.
But I thought 8 was way too much, even with the wide receiver injuries and all that. Like 6.5 wouldn't have shocked me, but I thought 8 was a little bit much. How does the market bring the Chargers back to like that around number 10 team in the league where they're maybe a half a point or a full point above market average? I think they should.
The big problem for me, I never get the Chargers right, but part of the reason why is because I don't know what people give them for home field regularly. And it throws off like my market perception of what they are. I feel like they're always playing road games. Let me put it that way.
If the game opens at 7, would you take the Chargers?
Yes.
Same. So I was thinking 6.5.
As was I. And I still think the Chargers are more likely to take money. I don't know if that's right or wrong.
No, I agree with that too.
But it's going to be like Herbert, home dog, got to win by a touchdown. Sign me up. And also, like, I bet against the Chiefs today. Extremely, extremely lucky, by the way, to get a push on that game. Like, that was an extremely lopsided game. The only reason that the Chiefs did not blow out the Jags is that they turned the ball over 3 times, and the Jags had an extra possession because they had a surprise onside on the first play of the game.
To win a game by 10 and have it lose the turnover battle 3-0 is something special. I'm glad I didn't get to watch that game with the over bet. I probably would have been pretty pissed. Maybe not breaking a mouse or throwing something at the TV, but I wouldn't have liked that.
What did Jags Chiefs total close at today?
51-ish, depending on where
that's
51 and a half.
That's my total for Chiefs Chargers.
Yeah. I mean,
it's going to get bet under. I feel I don't want to say I feel strongly about that, but like it's a primetime game, high total. You know, my spidey sense is going off here in terms of like where I see market movement on these games. I think it's going to get bet under. Jared says it's 6 if the Chargers are at home. They are at home. I don't think that's a bad guess. 6.5, 6, something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. This one I'm very much looking forwards to. Forwards to.
Cowboys Vikings?
Cowboys Vikings. Cowboys on the road. The Vikings finally get the signature win that everybody's been saying they need. They've been playing a bunch of nobodies. They get the signature win. Does the market respect it, or do they say it was a fluke?
So you again, for everybody listening and watching, we are honest and transparent. When we see a line, we tell it. I did see this one. This is the only one that I saw this week. So I will abstain from guessing. What I will say, though, is, I mean, the Vikings kind of needed a miracle today. This has nothing to do with the line. I mean, like all of the things that had happened. I mean, that Justin Jefferson catch was probably one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen.
Yep.
So, I mean, what was the percent chance of this outcome with half of a quarter left in Buffalo?
This was the craziest game of the year. Plain and simple, it was the craziest game of the year. It won't be topped. I mean, I don't want to say that because it's the NFL and you never know what you're going to get, but it was nuts. Like, I don't know. I honestly don't know what to make of it. I do think that the Cowboys pass rush is going to cause some serious problems for Kirk Cousins. It could be a deer in the headlights game. Obviously, I say that I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm trying to say this like, you know, be as unbiased as possible. But in putting a number on the game, I think if these teams had played this week, I think that the Cowboys would have been laying like 2.5 on the road. I no longer think that's the number for next week. I think it's going to open short of that. I think it'll open like pick, maybe -1, Dallas. But I think the Cowboys will get the money over the course of the week. People do not believe in the Vikings. Sharps, recreationals, people don't believe in the Vikings. I mean, that's just where I stand. I don't know. I think I lost Clive here for a second. He'll rejoin when the internet connection comes back in here. Tom Lyons puts 1.5 on the road. We got you back there, Clive. We're good.
Okay. I mean, did the show cut me off just because I said I saw the line already? I mean, what's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, I you can tell me if I'm right or not now, but like, I think.
So I don't know if what I saw was right because I didn't see it. I saw it on Twitter based on somebody saying that they bet a number at Twitter. I don't know if it was parody, but you're in the ballpark. Okay. If that's the right number.
Okay. High total, above 47, below 50. I'll say 48.5.
I say a little bit lower.
Okay.
Only 47.5. Not a lot. I mean, just slightly.
Well, it's
47.5.
It's at this point in the year, we're very rarely going to have a massive difference in a game. So I could see it. I could see this game taking under money. Think there'll be a lot of talk about the Cowboys D-line against the Vikings O-line. Definitely really looking forward to this game. I think it'll give us like a good indicator of where both of these teams are at right now.
Yeah. So from 4:00 on, you got two games that are really going to be interesting to watch and see play out. both two games that I'm actually excited to watch. Whereas the 1:00 game is like 0 for 7 or however many 1:00 games we have.
Okay, Cincinnati on the road, AFC North matchup. So Cincy coming off a bye, and they travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. I don't think Jamar Chase will be back for this game.
Oh, all right. I was just going to comment, like, it's the line movement in New Orleans. Pitt moved from Pittsburgh 3 minus 120 all the way down to being favored by the end of the day, 1.5, which is a pretty significant move for a team like Pittsburgh and a team, the Saints, the market just doesn't seem to want to throw away. So I have a hard time coming up with a number on this game for those reasons. I mean, we've talked about this. We talked about how important Watt is for Pittsburgh's defense, like incredibly, incredibly important.
Yep.
If you're telling me that's all based off of him, I'm honestly not shocked, or mostly based off of him. I'm not shocked. But the market loves the Bengals too. Like this one, I'm having a very difficult time coming up with. Bengals. If it opened Bengals 3.5, do you think the Steelers would take money quickly?
No, I don't. I think the Bengals might take money at that price.
Coming
off of a bye week.
With no Jamar Chase. Okay. All right. Oh, that's right. Bye week. I didn't factor that in. That's fair.
There's also a lot of, again, bear with me here, everyone. There are a lot of historical trends that point to road teams as favorites off of a bye week being profitable. If I'm going to apply logic to that trend, it's that you have the better team on the road and they've had an extra week to prepare. Teams kind of diminish they maybe overrate the home field advantage in that spot or something like that. I have no idea. But doesn't this kind of like feel like it could be similar to a Bengals-Browns game, that Monday night? Like that Monday Night Football game, Myles Garrett was going off in that game. And the Bengals O-line, it's very hit or miss depending on the opponent and whether or not they have a pass rush. I don't know about this game. I have a very, very difficult time because if you had told me before today, what are the Bengals going to be on the road at the Steelers? I would have said 6. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying 6. I'm saying like 4.5, and that's maybe like just what I think the right number should be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Unfortunately, the market grades the Bengals higher than I do, but they have for a while now. If it's 4.5, I think the Steelers maybe get a little bit of money and maybe it closes at 4.
Yeah, that's very
wouldn't
possible.
Wouldn't be shocked if it closed at 3.5 either. But I don't have a strong enough feel to be heavily against what you're saying at all. I think 6 would get bet Steelers quickly, but I wouldn't have been shocked if it opened at 6 either. Like I think the look ahead line might have been ridiculous.
I could look that up, but it's kind of like cheating usually. It probably was. Jared says that they kept Jamar Chase off of IR because there's a chance he could play this week. That's true. I'm just speaking off historical precedent and normally how long it takes an injury like that to heal. I don't think he would be at 100% if he plays. But total, I think, is very easy for me, which is like 43.
At 43, would I be looking to bet under? No. I think that's probably a pretty good number, actually.
I think the under is more likely to take money than the over in this game.
Yeah. I'd have a hard time betting over at 43, but like if you said 42.5, I wouldn't really change all that much. So I think 43 is probably pretty good.
All right. We'll end up with Monday Night Football, which I believe is a neutral site game. I don't remember where they're playing. Are they playing in Mexico?
Is that the Mexico game this year?
I thought it was the Mexico City, which was Arizona, San Fran. I'm just going to quickly look this up.
Yeah.
Estadio Azteca. Yes, I saw the previews for it when I was in Mexico. So it is neutral site, San Fran, Arizona. I guess like we don't know if Kyler Murray's going to play or not. Assume so. I don't know. What's the market make San Fran versus Arizona on a neutral? That's very, very tough right now.
Without Kyler or with Kyler? Like probably coming into the week.
I think Kyler's going to play next week, right? I think like he was a game time decision today. He's more likely to play than not. So what is that number made?
Like on a neutral, would you say 5.5, 6, maybe?
5.5? It seems about right to me. Yeah. Yeah. But I don't want to bet on No Brains Cliff Kingsbury. And I don't want to bet on the 49ers to cover a big number. I don't know where the market will go, but obviously the market likes San Fran. And obviously the market hates Arizona because Colt McCoy closes a 3-point dog to John Wolford today. Right? Like San Fran's probably going to take money.
Yeah, that's true. So maybe the books just open it at 6 or 6.5 on a neutral, like with Kyler being questionable. Actually, maybe if they're thinking he's questionable just based off of this alone, maybe they tick it up even more.
Like we're gonna wake up to tomorrow. There's not gonna be a posted line on this game, right? That's assume true. That like I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna go and check lines. There's not gonna be a line for this game, and there's the Monday Night Football games. Circle will have them posted like they always do, but there won't be a line for this, and I would assume that there's not going to be a line for Rams Saints, which we talked about just because of the possibility that Stafford doesn't play again.
Yeah. And like, how much do you typically change a total for playing on these? I know Europe's different because of the major time difference. Mexico, I mean, do you really change anything? I probably wouldn't.
I've never done any research into this, but like it's thin air, right? I don't know how that affects the defense. I mean, I probably should because they play in Mexico every other year or so, but I don't really have the knowledge to do that.
So the Chargers Niners closed 45.5. The Cardinals Rams with no Kyler Murray closed 38.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
With Kyler Murray, Arizona's median final score this year has been 52, average of 49. San Fran is a little bit trickier. I can strip out the Trey Lance game at the start of the year. If I do that, their median has been 40. And so like this is going to be mid 40s total, 45.
I think the Cardinals Rams probably would have been 41 with Kyler and no Stafford.
Yep.
Yeah, in this weird situation, 45. Maybe gets bet up too. I mean, if Kyler plays, it gets bet up, but it's really tough to kind of talk through this one without knowing if he's going to.
I would be more likely to bet Arizona in this game. Obviously not at the same price, but if Colt McCoy started, I'd be more likely to have a bet on Arizona because it's extremely unlikely I'm going to find a valuable bet with Kyler Murray. The market, in my opinion, just overrates the Cardinals all the time with Kyler Murray.
Yeah. And they haven't come back to what I thought their offensive potential was once Hopkins came back. I mean, Hopkins is playing well, and he's putting up numbers and getting good target share and all that stuff. But it hasn't meant enough for them as a whole.
All right. That's going to do it for us this week on Forward Progress. Once again, if you do enjoy the content, hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Thumbs up if you like it. Tell your friends, because why not? Tomorrow night, I'm back. Prime time for Monday Night Football. This will be over on the Hammer HQ. If you're not following or subscribed to the Hammer HQ on YouTube, subscribe now.
Tell your
Follow us
friends
on Twitter. Tell your friends, because why not?
Friends.
Why wouldn't you tell your friends? It's an easy thing to do. Back tomorrow night with Eric Eager of Sumer Sports. Forward progress this week. Bunch of good stuff coming up. Teaser time with Joe Osborne. Band of betters. All sorts of stuff. This is your spot for your football content. So definitely make sure you subscribe. For myself, for Clive Bixby, for our producer, Jason Cooper, this has been Forward Progress. Peace.
See you.